Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today here with National Cannabis News with Cass. I am so glad that you're here. We have a good show to get together for you for this Friday. This is my 26th episode. That means I've been doing this for a year. 25th episode last week. I'm so glad. Thank you guys all for all the support, for all the follows, for all the comments, for coming out to Patreon and filling everything out of my surveys. For the show, we're going to go the normal way. We're going to talk about cannabis busts from around the country and the globe. We'll talk about what's going on Capitol Hill, as well as some new science studies that came out just this past week. We'll also talk about what the heck is going on here. Yes, Rip Von Stinkle, 100%. The merger bill is hitting the floor tonight. It's something I've worked on for the last almost 2 years. I'm excited to see it. I have been pins and needling it as it moves through with lots of subs, amendments, etc., getting changes. But it's there now. And tomorrow, the next day, like we could have a completely new cannabis law here in the state of Michigan. So that's pretty exciting. There's been a lot of other stuff. We're still going through about 10 pages, sometimes 20 pages of the new proposed rules. We'll keep doing this every week. Get those questions in, get those comments ready, be ready for that public hearing, add your comments into what's going on here from the Cannabis Regulatory Agency here in Michigan. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about those busts. There have been a lot of busts in the past week, guys. And last week I was starting to feel like maybe they had decided not to continue arresting traditional market operators in legal states, but I was woefully wrong, as is usually the case when I start thinking that law enforcement is, gonna be lenient with cannabis operators across the country. It's just not the case. So New York, California, Oklahoma, these are all places that have very active licensed markets. They continue to have active traditional markets as well, and traditional market operators are being arrested for all kinds of stuff. I feel like the biggest thing here comes back to, there's only reason traditional market operation needs to exist now is because regulation doesn't allow everyone to participate, doesn't allow everyone to have access. And that could include neighboring states like Texas, okay, like Kansas from Oklahoma, where, people are gonna be making these products available out of state, but they get caught while they're in state. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going around. For decades, we talked about really cannabis really just came from the mountains of California. Now it comes from all over. We still have, even with 40 states now with licensed legal medical programs, as far as in their laws, not all of those states actually give people access. And even in states where they have a program where you can get access, sometimes, the requirements to get medical access are, you basically have to be dying. And that's not the only people who need access to this plant. So self-medication is important. Traditional market operators offer an outlet that allows people who want to self-medicate in that way to have access. And they have been for generations, right? But for whatever reason, the police still spend an insane amount of time and energy arresting those folks. I wish they wouldn't. I thought to myself, last year was almost 250,000 arrests. Each arrest costs between $15,000 and $30,000. Let's do that math real quick. 2 5 to 0, 0 times, let's just say 24 because that's the average. Okay, that's $6 billion just spent arresting cannabis people, mostly for possession, last year alone. We won't know for a couple more weeks what this looks like. And it is less than it was, say, 20 years ago, but still, do we want them spending $6 billion arresting people for weed? Is that what we want? Because I don't think so. Rex P52, I'm so glad you're here as well. Thank you for joining us today. So there's been a lot of other things that have happened as far as busts. We're starting to see larger busts again by Customs and Border Patrol. A lot of these are now happening in the Northeast. Even in the great state of Michigan, where people are trying to leave the country with pounds of cannabis being stopped by Customs and Border Patrol before they're able to leave the country. In often cases, they're trying to take the cannabis that is cheaply available here in the United States to places where it's not readily available, like the European Union and the United Kingdom, and transferring it there. Tom, I agree. A serious waste of money. What else could we do with that $6 billion? And if we consider the 32,000 people that are still behind bars, which is almost $70,000 a year at this point to keep them behind bars, like how much money are we spending just keeping those people, continuing to keep those people behind bars? We're spending almost $3 billion keeping them behind bars, an additional $6 billion arresting them. That's $8 billion. What could we spend instead? I heard recently that the Republicans and the Democrats are fighting over whether or not farmers get to have additional subsidies given to them from the government as grants due to disasters in farming areas in the United States. They needed about, drum roll, $10 million or $10 billion. There you go. We just found it. Stop arresting cannabis folks around the country, and you can literally take that money and give it to farmers all over. I think that would be pretty amazing. Let's see here. Brandy Z Detroit. Bernie Ellis busted for giving away 25 pounds in New Mexico for free. This is a guess, right? New Mexico is a licensed legal state, but apparently you can't give away weed for free when people need it to medicate. That's just ridiculous, right? There are so many people that are behind bars today for life, people, okay? For a product that you can probably buy at the corner store, at your local dispensary, or maybe even on Amazon or Facebook and have it drop shipped to your house. People are still behind bars for the rest of their life. And even if not for the rest of their life, 10 years, right? Minimum sentencing for a long time. Still today, minimum sentencing for trafficking in cannabis, 10 years. Think about that. How does that make sense? You can literally shoot someone and take less time than being a cannabis traditional market operator. And yet they still take the risk because they know how important it is for people to have access to this medicine all over the country. It's crazy. Thank you, Rip Von Sinkle. I agree. Good resolution. I think it would solve so many problems, and I'm glad that at least some people that are here today agree with me on that. All right, so there were a lot of other places that people are being arrested. Again, one of the things that I keep trying to point out whenever I'm talking to everyone, the masses, right? If you're a traditional market operator and you're working with cannabis, you might consider not working with other drugs. About 80% of the people currently being arrested with cannabis are also caught with other things. Those other things, even if the marijuana that they're caught with has been decriminalized in their area, are getting them put into prison. So what does other things mean, you might ask? It means, do you have a firearm and you have cannabis? Now you're going to prison. Do you have opiates on you that aren't prescribed to you and cannabis? Now you're going to prison. Are you growing mushrooms and looking to expand your mind, and you also have cannabis with you? Well, yeah, probably now you're going to prison. Even people who are trying to do it really, really well, with the kindness, they're only doing it for their own families. Mixing these things together can really cause harm. And then you're going to need a really good lawyer. And even then, you still might end up with something that really nobody wants, right? Rex P52 says, low-risk offenders are a huge workforce supply that the U.S. employer will need. Check out indianareentry.org. We're about to see a huge shift in this justice related to those low-risk offenders. Yeah, I 100% agree, Rex. One of the things that really freaks me out is when I look at the fact that per capita, we have more people in prison than anywhere else on the planet. And we use a majority of those people in our country for slave labor. What does slave labor really mean? It means you're going to make between 11 and 17 cents an hour. You don't have a choice to do the work. And the work could be everything from answering customer service phone lines. Yes, I'm not kidding. They make prisoners do that. To fighting forest fires and laying our roads, right? Incredibly dangerous work that you're not really paid for, that if you choose not to do, you end up in things like solitary confinement. You don't have access to the food that you might need. You might not be able to talk to your family members on a phone, all because you're serving time for something. And I really feel like that kind of slavery isn't appropriate. And there are some states that agree, and so they've changed their laws. Michigan is not one of them, and I really wish that would be the case. Rip Von Sinkle, that's terrible. No, we aren't trying to put more people in jail but I hear you. It's as though we're giving everyone gets a taco and now everybody gets to go to prison. It's not something we should be doing. Certainly not as the broad I mean, I think it's like 85% of the nation now thinks that cannabis should no longer be illegal. If we had a national vote on it, I'm sure it'd be overturned. But the government knows that they can't do that because it would be overturned, and then they wouldn't be able to use this as a reason to pull people over and question them and search them and create lots of other additional arrests that otherwise wouldn't exist. And we know that they wouldn't exist because in areas where decriminalization has happened, right? In areas where legalization has happened, so you can no longer pull a person over because they smell like weed, arrests are down, usually over 60%. Here in Michigan, it's over 75%. That means they've been using this, and people who consume this, and traditional market operators, neighborhoods, and their families, right, have disproportionately been impacted by this war on drugs, and then expanded into more just the war on drugs. Right? The war on complete neighborhoods and just using drugs as the pretense for making those arrests and doing those searches. It gets pretty crazy, I think. Okay? It is worth noting that there's been a lot of conversation about Texas on this show in the past. All right? I think it's important to talk about it again today. So in Texas, they have new hemp laws that basically allow you to have access to cannabis, maybe cannabis light or actual cannabis. But what we're starting to see now is that local sheriffs are starting to make arrests. We're seeing kids being arrested. We're seeing teachers be arrested. We're seeing workers be arrested when they're leaving their work and going home from the places where they're selling these products. This is happening. Texas is the #1 place in the country for cannabis arrests. It has been for the last 6 years. Sounds like they're just got to make up for lost time and make sure everybody goes to jail for this. In other news, there's been quite a bit of conversation about, the Chinese organized crime being involved in cannabis. And for a while, we weren't seeing any arrests. We weren't seeing any busts. We were seeing nothing, no deportation, not anything. But the past 3 weeks, we've seen a resurgence of these arrests. We're starting to see that was not just a wives' tale that, regulators and police officers everywhere were saying, oh, well, what about all the Chinese guys that are out there trafficking people? Well, now they're actually being arrested, going to jail. The people they're trafficking are being freed. They're being, I don't know if they'll be deported or not. They might not be deported right now, but they'll probably be deported in like a month, which is sad for everyone, but is also the case, right? So these kinds of things are happening. It's interesting to see that. At least I think that it's interesting to see it, because for a few years people were saying that this was happening, and this is why they needed to infringe upon licensed operators' rights, because we might be interacting with Chinese organized crime, and now we actually have evidence that that's the case. We have it from Texas, we have it from Oklahoma, we have it from Georgia, we have it from North Carolina. So these arrests are happening all over. It's hard for me, because on the one hand, I think human trafficking is probably one of the worst things. It's literally slavery, which we hate in the prison system. Certainly we hate it outside of the prison system. On the other hand, you know what? I want people to have access to this plant. If the only way they can get access is from a no. Yeah, Chinese operators that are trafficking people should not be able to give people access. And if I can't even say that you should get access that way. Like, you should not get access to this plant because a slave is making it for you, and who's been torn away from their families, being held against their will. It's just terrible and wrong. So if you think that you're in a state where that's where you're getting your cannabis from, you might think about, relocating. That's what I had to do with my family before Missouri went legal. We had to leave Missouri and go to Colorado so that my wife could have access to medication. I know it's not something everybody can do, and it's definitely a white privilege there, but I'm telling you, don't take the cannabis from slave owners. It's not good for anybody. All right, so moving right along, you guys might also have heard that here in Michigan, one of the minority owners of Choice Labs had their offices raided this past week. Apparently unrelated to cannabis, other crimes were committed and evidence needed to be seized and raided, but it just happens to be adjacent to the cannabis industry here in Michigan, so I felt the need to mention that to you. I feel like as well, maybe this is the case, but it feels like the first 2 weeks in December, cops are out busting a lot of people because they're going to take some time off, because the arrests are up like dramatically for the last 2 weeks compared to right around Thanksgiving. I wonder if that will stick on. Rex P52 says, this is why the 13th Amendment to the United States provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist with the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That's right. So we got rid of slavery back in the 1800s and then immediately said, cool, we're going to arrest everyone and come up with rules to arrest everyone so we can maintain the slave labor workforce. If you are consuming vegetables produced in the United States, if you were wearing clothes produced in the United States, if you are receiving customer service from a government entity in the United States, if you are living in a place that has wildfires and you have people that are going around, clearing brush or putting out those wildfires, if you are living in a place that has a federal highway, which is basically everyone in the United States lives within like 30 minutes of a federal highway, and you have convicts that are working the highway, cleaning up the roadways, picking up trash, mowing, etc., all of those people are slaves under the 13th Amendment because they have been convicted of a crime, and so we can force them into servitude. It's messy, it's messed up, it's something we should actively work against, and we should 100% make sure that less people are being arrested for cannabis, because those folks are going to become slaves in the prison industrial complex, and that's not okay. It's just not okay. We should definitely be working against this. We're also seeing a resurgence of people being arrested overseas. I think it was mentioned, there was a group that was arrested coming out of Thailand. A lot of this has to do with international trafficking, where they're moving material from one place to another, even if they have legal programs where they are. And that's pretty sad. Rex RP52 says, basically this allows the private prison industry to game a rigged system for labor. 100% it does. When I was in Arizona, I had somebody come by and ask me if I wanted convicts to work in my licensed legal cultivation facility. It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. But then I learned that lots of people get to do that. Lots of people in Arizona use convict labor for everything. Working in greenhouses that are, 130 degrees or warmer, being treated poorly the entire time and making less than 15 cents an hour. Right? So, I mean, it's ridiculous that we allow it to happen in our country. And it's crazy that we're mad at other countries for their enslavement of the population when we have millions of people behind bars being forced into this servitude against their will with no right to stop it. And people at the prisons are profiting from it because you don't get their labor for 15 cents. You're going to still pay regular rates for it, right? It's messy, right? So the guy using the labor is getting it. The guy that owns the prison is making it rich. Not to even say beyond that, I recently got to experience this in my own family. I don't know if you know, but it's like 47 cents a minute to talk to somebody in prison, and there's no other way. They can't even write you a letter in a normal way. You can't send them a piece of paper, an envelope, and a stamp for them to write you. No, you got to pay $6 for that shit to happen. For a single page, one envelope, and a stamp. It doesn't cost no $6, but that's what you got to pay because that's how the prison's making its money. And they want to make more money, hand over fist. Not only are we paying our tax dollars to hold these people behind bars, but then everybody who's in there is paying a ridiculous amount of money for like the most innocuous things. Like a pair of socks is going to be like $7, right? You want a pair of underwear, it's going to be like $7. You want a t-shirt, it's going to be $11. Like, it's ridiculous fees what's happening there. So terrible. Rex says, basically this allows, yeah, it does. It's a rigged system. I agree. All right, so guys, that's on busts. I know it sounds crazy. I've been working to make these rules changed. I hope you guys will work with me. Clearly some people that are here commenting today are doing this. Thank you for participating in trying to make these rules changed. I think there's 11 states now who are saying, hey, no, if you're in a prison in my state, you can't be forced into this labor. It's funny. I had somebody tell me the other day, well, aren't they bored? Don't they want to do this work? Would you want to do work if you're only going to be given 15 cents an hour? If the answer isn't yes, then why would you assume someone else would? Okay, let's just leave it there. All right, so what's going on in Capitol Hill? Looks like we're not going to get any safe banking, guys. So we were trying to get that through. The Republicans are not interested, so it sounds like we aren't going to be able to tack that on to the budget as an amendment. Sad news for everybody who's out there. I know that incoming President Trump had said that he is for safe banking. Clearly, the rest of his party is not on board with this. Otherwise, we'd be able to move this forward. It's kind of like an ongoing issue where some people will say, yeah, we think that we should have this, right? Because it is bipartisan on occasion. It's certainly the bipartisan votes in the House. It has been bipartisan, but it's not always the case. And there definitely are people who, for some reason, think that cannabis operators are the most deadliest criminals on the planet. And we should definitely not have access to banking, because if we do, I guess we will become more dangerous. I don't know what they think we're doing, gonna like build nukes. I'm not sure what they think we do if we had access to banking. I'm pretty sure that I would just, I don't know, deposit cash. That's what I would do. Okay. It's also worth noting that we have about 8 more days today, and today plus 7 days for the Farm Bill to either get an additional extension or have something else be passed. Doesn't look like it's going to pass to me. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. But it is important to note that the House Farm Bill has THC destroying amendments in it for the hemp industry. So all of those wonderful hemp products that are available for sale around the country would go away. And the Senate bill also has this same provision. The House bill makes it really hard to have CBD products as well. But the Senate bill makes it very hard to have intoxicating THC-based products. And it expands the definition of THC to include things like THCA and Delta-8, not just Delta-9, which is how it was written previously. In other news, and perhaps she is still here, I'm pretty sure I saw that she was here, Brandy Zink is stepping up with Americans for Safe Access, taking on a new national role to help all of us chapters out and get the patient words up and through. If you are interested in patients around the country and you want to help with fundraising or drop some dollars down or do something, patient access is constantly at risk. Every year we have to get a CGS amendment that's part of the budget omnibus to continue making it so that the federal government can't do raids on patients and their caregivers and doctors. Without that, it would be really terrible. So I am asking you here, support Brandy and her work, support Steph and her work. Look at what Americans for Safe Access is doing, because without them, we would not have had as much medical legalization as we have. 40 states and people. 40 states with licensed medical programs on the books. Not all of them have been implemented yet, but they are there. And that is from the hard work of these women and this organization over the last 22 years. I am so excited about this. Brandy is here. She says thank you. She has added a link, which is safeaccess.org. Check it out. They also have amazing tools for talking to your doctor, for talking to your kids, for talking to your parents about cannabis in a way that is approachable and helpful. They also have a really excellent pamphlet that talks about how you can tell the difference between good products and bad products, and telling, good edibles, bad edibles, etc. I think it's really great. Rex says, don't forget the GPS device the offender pays for, and that only tells where the person is at, right? Because new wearable tech can do so much more. And he also says the system is the head of the snake, and the medical space is what this industry is chasing. And he thinks that it's about to get a kick if RFK is appointed. You know what? It could be the case. I keep thinking maybe it would be, but as a disruptor, I did not see that for pharma in Trump's last term in office, even with the ridiculousness that they tried. So maybe the disruption, or maybe just more status quo. Seems to me like, basically an entire cabinet of billionaires is for the status quo, but I could be very wrong about that. It's possible. All right, so other things that are happening on Capitol Hill, as I'm sure you guys know, the hearing finished up last week. I gave a link to it so you can watch it. You can watch it on YouTube. This was just a hearing for people to say who they are, where they live, and when they are going to be able to meet in the first quarter of next year. Everybody, it seems like, was basically available, except for, of course, the DEA itself, which for whatever reason said, I don't think we're going to be available until like June. You know what? Yeah, if the DEA can't show up to represent themselves at a hearing that is their hearing until June, something is wrong. But you know what? I'm sure they're just super busy. They definitely don't have enough people on their team to be prepared sooner than that. Okay, whatever. Sure, I believe it. All right, so moving on to cannabis science, there was a really cool new study that came out. Actually, two separate studies across two different states with different ranges of kids. So slightly younger kids, kids under the age of 8, plus kids of all ages. And what it said was that if you're honest with your kids about your personal cannabis use, so you're not hiding it, right? You tell them why you're doing it and what it causes, etc. That actually helps them develop healthier patterns for their own future usage, right? Meaning they won't use to excess. They won't use inappropriately. They won't use in dangerous situations, like if they have to drive, etc. Right? Because they're learning from you to do these things well. I figure they probably would also learn if you were like getting really high and doing silly things or driving or whatever. So please, parents or people acting as parents for young ones, if you're going to be using cannabis around them, do it in a way that you would hope that they would do in the future. Okay. Perhaps not lighting the forest on fire or driving your car into a guardrail because you're too stoned or something like that. All right. I felt like this was really cool. There's been a lot of conversation about why parents should hide their drug use from their kids, which I always thought was silly. I felt like my parents never did that to me. They were always open and honest about substances. And then I didn't feel the need to use substances at all, and certainly never to excess. Okay. And I was like, hey, that's good. Did the same thing with my kid. He also, doesn't use to excess if he uses substances at all. Seemed like a good pattern to continue. And it's nice to actually have some science that backs up that, yes, this does work. Hiding it from them, lying to them that you don't use it, telling them that you've never used it, etc. is not the answer. Being honest, being responsible with your use is the answer. All right. Guys, if you are interested in Pokemon, there is a Flaby that is currently available to be caught in the chat. Don't feel like you need to catch a Pokemon. I know not everybody's into that, but I definitely still catch Pokemon on the regular. I actually got to hatch an egg in Pokemon Go earlier today because I walked so much yesterday when I was at the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association's Holiday Gala, which was really great. Got to see a lot of people I don't usually get to see. Pretty happy about that. It was excellent to hear Claire Patterson talking about the new lab and how that's going to work. I am very impressed with what the state lab is getting ready to do. I'm also super hopeful that the House bill that's going to allow them to have cannabis at the lab to do that testing will pass, right? Because, currently they can't because government officials, stuff and things, reasons. But hopefully that will pass, and then they'll be able to have that ability, and we'll get that lab up and running. We'll have, more standardization of testing here in Michigan, which of course is important. We're coming up on about halfway through the show, guys. So if you have questions or comments, this is a time for asking anything. We're going to go ahead and go over the proposed rules. I think we are on page 31 from last time. Do you guys agree? Page 31? Yeah, I think so. Let's see where it says. Yep, page 31. Okay, so as we've been going through, I've been adding comments to this and, talking through everyone on this. What they've done is basically rewrite the entire document, okay? And in rewriting the entire document, instead of making subtle changes, it looks like the entire section is different. It's not actually the case, though, okay? For whatever reason, they just scrapped it and then wrote something else, but what they wrote is almost identical. So when you're looking at this, know that that's the case. Also, it says it's 192 pages, but it's actually only like 87 pages if you take away all the stuff they struck. All right. This is definitely the case. So let's see here. We've got all of the requirements for maintaining insurance is here. And now they are also expanding some insurance requirements for transporters, which I think, and I'm saying they're expanding it just because they've made it more specific. I think they were always responsible for having that. I don't think it was ever legal to drive a car in the state of Michigan. I'm not 100% sure about that without insurance, but I'm pretty sure you can't drive a car in Michigan or a truck in Michigan without insurance. Previously, now they just say that you have to have it, which you always had to have. One of the things I thought was really interesting is that they removed the definition for the marijuana business location plan. But we still have section 420.8, which is the marijuana business location plan. So what I had hoped when I was reading definitions is that we would no longer have to have this duplicitous document that we submit, but that is not the case. We still have to submit this terrible document. This document is one PDF of all the other documents that you've submitted, plus a statement at the beginning with like your business name on it on a single page. It's like, why? Why do they need it to be that way? But I guess that, it's the government. It's the government. Let's see here. Rex has said Eli Lilly is indie, and the American Legion is starting to pay attention. I remember once we talked about that before. Yes, that is the case. We'll start having a different narrative that will be driving the decades of old misinformation efforts. Yeah, I agree. Rex asks where ASTM is on standards. So we had 6 new standards come out in December. This was voluntary consensus standards. So ASTM is an international voluntary consensus standards body. What does that mean, you might ask? That means that a bunch of people get together, industry experts, consumers, manufacturers, processors, etc., regulators, interested parties that aren't any of those things. They all get together, and as members of the organization, they can review documentation, create new standards, create new specifications, create new test methods. And then as they do that, there's a voting process. So we actually have to get consensus there. Either everybody votes positive, which basically never happens, but if someone votes negative, there's a step to get consensus to include what, the changes that they need to have there. We're seeing that. Our next big committee week meeting is January, I think 22nd, 23rd, 24th in Houston, Texas. There's a lot of additional standards. I'm currently the chair of the Occupational Health and Safety Task Force within ASTM's D3704 on processing and handling of cannabis. So we're working on standards there. Hopefully we will have a dust standard soon for how people can protect their employees using environmental engineering controls as well as PPE for the right kinds of dust that they're going to be working with based on the type. Are they bucking? Are they decoordinating? Are they baling? Are they trimming? Are they grinding, etc.? So I'm hopeful we'll have that soon. And that is a partnership between ASTM International and NIOSH, which is a government organization. It's a part of the CDC that actually does the research into the particle size and the potential damage that's happening when people are inhaling those particles. Rip Von Sinkle, I think you would be really happy for that. They're also including microbial contamination and other such things, and going to be creating some indoor air limits that are going to be specific for this is the kind of particles that you're going to have, similar to what we already have for fibers in the cotton industry and the grain industries. So now we'll have it for the cannabis industry and the hemp industry as well. Rip Von Sinkle says, why do you think they are baking in 420.601? Let me see this one second. 420.601. 420.601. Next. So when I'm looking at the draft, I see that 420.601 has been rescinded and lined through. Yeah, I think that's gone now. In the past, they made you do this. I don't think they're making you do this anymore. I think they're only making people who, not employees. I think the change is now only applicants. I still think that this is terrible, and there's no reason that a person shouldn't be able to have a licensed marijuana facility and also be a licensed at-home caregiver. But I'm, again, going back to the top of the hour, guys, even though we're paying all this money and we're going through all these background checks and we're super honest and we videotape everything and we share everything with them, they still want to treat us like criminals. And apparently, if you can grow at home, which you can legally as an adult in the state of Michigan, if you could grow at home, you will somehow commingle your caregiver operations with your licensed operations, and that will cause, I don't know, more criminality, drug trafficking, and money laundering that nobody wants. I think it's hilarious because that's still 100% going on, but it doesn't involve caregivers, right? It's just traditional market operators who were never in the caregiver market to begin with. And it is pretty terrible that they make people give up the ability to take care of their friends and family members using marijuana they grow at their own homes, just so that they can, I don't know, get a license that then is going to, you know, not be terribly competitive. Right. So in the summary, okay, so the summary is woefully inaccurate. Okay. I have, people keep asking me about stuff that's in the summary. I go into the actual rules and it's just totally bogus. What's in the summary is just wrong. Last night at the Holiday Gala, David Barnes from the CRA, their public relations guy, got up and was like, "Hey, yeah, we gave these documents. Don't necessarily read those. You can, but read the actual text, okay? Because when you're looking with, you know, like there's a bunch of the summary still says, for instance, that pre-rolls are going to have to be individually tested after manufacturing, which they took out, right? So that is the case. Let me do a word search real quick here and see if there is one. Okay, so there is a, let me see here. Yep. Nope. Okay. Nope. Just going through every mention of caregiver. Okay, that's what I'm doing right now. Not there, next, not there, next, not there, next. In this section here, they had removed the section on caregiver. Going to the next one. They had also removed it from there. And moved it from the next section. And the next, and the next, and the next. And the next. So, I mean, all of this is being aligned through. Okay. Nope, this just says that you can, if you're a micro business, you can receive plants that first time from a caregiver, which, you know, is still the case. Let's see here. Nope, nope, nope. That was rescinded, rescinded, rescinded. I think maybe they got rid of this. At least that's how it's appearing. Yep. Yep. Okay, there's a thing here that says that people who still have material previously transferred to them from caregivers won't sell that, which is a change. It's been their policy for a long time, so now it'll be in the rules. I think that policy went into place in early 2021. I think it was March 2021. They said that you could no longer sell caregiver-derived materials. Right? Nope, those are rescinded statements. Rescinded, 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 rescinded. Nope, that is to sell to a caregiver. Nope. Selling to a caregiver. Selling to a caregiver. Selling to a caregiver. Okay. Marketed brand. Okay, so here we go. We got training specifically on how to comply with the requirements of 420.221 when a registered primary caregiver is hired as an employee of a grower, processor, or secure transporter under the MMFLA. The licensee shall ensure the employee withdraws their registration as a registered primary caregiver within 5 days of being hired. So this is actually the same language that was previously in there. The difference in this case is they, for whatever reason, no longer call people individuals. Now they are specific. They call them employees. So it's the same language that was always there before, Stacy. And it is in section, let me see here. Nope, you're right. It is. It's 420.602 now instead of 601. And it's subpart D. So I will, just like I did the last time we had rules, I will submit something that says that this is ridiculous, that an employee should never have to give up their existing rights under the MMMA to be an employee. Full stop. I know I keep saying this kind of stuff, but it seems important to me. So we got to keep saying it. Otherwise, they're not going to change the rules. And if our voices should matter, I should be able to take care of patients whether or not I am employed as a bud tender. right? I should be able to take care of a patient whether or not I'm employed as a cannabis trimmer at a cultivation facility. That's just how it should be. All right, so going back to where we were before, we got Rip Von Siegel's fabulous question. So now we're on page 33, everyone. And in this section, they have completely changed what can allow you to not get your license renewed. Ooh, juicy. All right, so they rescinded the whole section, and then they wrote a new one that said that, and they've changed some words here. So, they said that they shall not renew if each person under these acts isn't eligible, qualified, and suitable. They may also refuse to renew. No, they don't penalize the worker for not complying. They penalize your boss. And if I remember correctly, let me go check real quick. I think it's like a $10,000 fine for not following the employee requirement. Right? So your boss is responsible for making sure that they hire people that are not caregivers. Right? Right. I mean, it's terrible, but also true. Technical, other, back. I'm sorry. So there's a list here. Actually, I have it somewhere else. I can get it pretty easily. Okay. So here we go. Because every section of the code, okay, has a corresponding disciplinary action fee structure if you don't follow it. Okay, so we can go and we can look at this. This was given out to everybody in July of 2024. It went out to all stakeholders. You can still find it on the CRI's website. Let's see here. All the sales. Rip Von Sinkle says, right, I'm just wondering if they are going to enforce this and penalize the worker for not complying. It's nonsense. It makes no so much difficult for compliance officers. And then it removes even more institutional knowledge. It really does. It really does. It's kind of like an ongoing issue. They don't want people who've worked with cannabis to get to work for the CRA. They don't want people who are caregivers to be able to continue being caregivers and work for anybody else. Okay, so according to the current disciplinary guidelines, if your employer failed to make sure that you withdrew your individual registration as a registered primary caregiver, if you were an employee of a grower, a processor, or a transporter, again, not a retail operator, so not for bud tenders, okay, not for temporary event organizers, not for designated consumption establishment individuals, just for growers, processors, and transporters, not for laboratory employees, okay? It's a $2,000 fine, right? So, is your employer going to allow that and accept a $2,000 fine on your behalf? Maybe. I don't think I would as an employer. I don't have $2,000 to allow you to continue doing that. It's just the truth. Okay. All right. So moving on. So page 34, right? We're talking now about reasons for denial of a license. And it, amazingly enough, references another section, a previous section. So let's go to that section. So in this case, wow, they totally said go over here. So if this section here says they can deny your license if the applicant submitted an application that it has a material misrepresentation, They failed to notify the agency in a timely manner that the information provided has changed after it was submitted. The applicant failed to correct the deficiency within 5 days. Or the applicant is holding an elective office of a government unit of the state, or another state, or the federal government, which I think people think is unconstitutional and are constantly trying to challenge, or is a member of or employed by a regulatory body of a governmental unit in the state, another state, or the federal government. I feel like that previously just said in the state, and so making it so that you can't be a license holder in the state of Michigan and also be a cop in Illinois, it's kind of fucked up. But, you know, again, we got to tell them. We got to be like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. We got to change this, right? Also, for whatever reason, this subdivision does not apply to an elected official or an employee of an Indian tribe. So I guess that's good. It also doesn't apply to the spouse of the person, unless for whatever reason the spouse creates a conflict of interest with the agency or a government regulatory body in this state, another state, or the federal government. So I guess if your spouse works for the FDA, you can't be a licensed operator in Michigan because reasons. Certainly if your spouse worked for the DEA, I don't even think you could do that, right? Like, would you pass a background check to work at the DEA if your spouse was a licensed cannabis operator? I don't think you would. Maybe, but I don't think so. So there's a lot of other items here. This is something, you know, that's pretty specific, and I think people talk about it a lot. There was, I don't know if you guys caught in the news, but there was a minority partner in Choice Labs here in Michigan that had their facilities raided by the FBI, not related to cannabis. Okay, they are a cannabis supplemental applicant, but the crime that they were being raided for was not related to cannabis. And people were like, oh, well, then that guy, you know, he's not going to be able to be a supplemental applicant anymore, stuff and things. Well, actually, you know, there's not a lot of crime that you can't commit and still be a supplemental applicant in the state of Michigan, except for distribution of tobacco or alcohol to a minor, which I think is kind of hilarious. Personally, the way that's written, because it doesn't include other drug substances, it's just tobacco or alcohol to a minor. I'm pretty sure it used to include, I don't know, selling drugs to kids too. But who am I to judge the changes that the government wants to make? I mean, clearly, it's my job. My job is to judge them and to tell them that I disagree and propose solutions to fix the problem, right? So, okay. Does anybody else have more questions? If not, I am going to continue on to the next page. Yay, more pages. Everybody's excited about that. So now we're on page 34. Notification and reporting. So previously there's a really brief section, okay, guys? Previously it just said that you will notify them if there is a crime within 24 hours. Okay? Now it says you will notify them about all kinds of stuff, including notifying them within 10 days for any changes in mailing addresses of your supplemental applicants. So if somebody on your application moves, if somebody on your application changes their phone number, if somebody on your application changes their email address, you have to notify them within 10 days. So be thinking about that the next time you're having a bunch of people on your application. They also have to notify, you have to notify them immediately. Now this has always been in practice, but I don't think it was written out quite as concisely now. You have to notify them if you have any products that have been adulterated or contaminated. Never had to tell them that before. If you have any product that has not passed full compliance testing, never had to tell them that anymore. If the product was not tested in compliance with the requirements, for whatever reason, if the product was mislabeled, and you have to also notify them if any of the products that meet any of those criteria are being sold to a marijuana customer, right? So this is, previously there was no rule that specified how issues that would require recall need to be notified to the agency and in a timely manner. So that's a little crazy. And it says that we have to immediately notify the agency. I think that's inappropriate. So I'm definitely going to say, we shouldn't never notify the agency immediately. We should first do a root cause assessment and an investigation, see how broadly things would be.
Often that's probably not immediate, but you know, within 24 hours or 72 hours seems reasonable. And given that that's the same requirement for the FDA, having the agency say that we need to do it faster than even the FDA would require seems a little ridiculous to me. Says here that we have to notify them, of course, of an uncontrolled fire. That's the same. It's just written in a different way. We have to notify them if we are aware of any adverse reactions. Again, was previously here, but it's just been written in another way. Also, it seems that they have taken parts from all over the rest of the document and smooshed them into this one section, which is nice. So like all notification and reporting is here now instead of being like in other relevant sections, right? Because in the past there was a section on adulteration and it was only in the section on licensees that are retail establishments. Let's see here. We have 5 days to notify of criminal charges, disciplinary action in another state, which I think this is hilarious. We're supposed to notify them within 5 days of disciplinary action by this state, by the CRA. We have to make sure we tell them, hey, the CRA is giving me disciplinary action. You would think that they would be able to tell each other that, but no, you're the one responsible. I know it sounds crazy, but you would think that when you submit a reporting form with all of your drawings and documents to the agency and then they're like, cool, this needs to go to plan review, that they would literally just hand it to them in plan review via Celia, but they don't. No, they make you submit an additional request to the other agency that is part of their department. So yeah, they actually mean this. So if you get disciplinary action, you better be telling your regulatory officer, even though they probably were involved. You're also still responsible for letting them know about any other lawsuits, etc., that are happening within 10 days of being notified. So I mean, there's just, you know, there's lots of stuff here. I think it's like, you know, not huge changes. The changes are language and an entire new section on what you need to do for when recall situations occur, which I'm just going to add myself a note so I remember this. All right, I've added that note. There we go. Okay, so do we have any more questions, everyone? No questions? I think we're going to go on to page 35. 35, removing restrictions on ownership interests. Wow. All right. Beginning on the effective date of this rule, a person may hold an ownership interest in more than 5 marijuana growers or more than one marijuana micro business. Okay. That's interesting. All right, then we go on to stacked licensing. Which I think if you're a cultivator and you have more than one Class C license, you've been probably operating under this before. It's just better defined now. And they're basically saying that you have to wait to do this until approved by the agency. The agency approves you basically immediately. That's been at least their practice, so no big change there. It says changes to a marijuana business. This section was rescinded completely and a new section was added. So let's see here. You'll not make material change. This is important. The number 3 cause for disciplinary action and fines in the state of Michigan right now is people failing to appropriately report material changes. So let's see how this has changed. Let's see here. We'll submit the request. You will not make the material change to the business unless you submit a request and the agency approves the change. Material and change, but is not limited to any of the following. Changes in owners, officers, members, directors, or managerial employees, or their spouses. That's right, guys. You can't fucking get divorced without first asking the CRA for permission. Not kidding. It's how it's written right now. Okay, I'm just going to tag that to remind myself for later. Wow. Okay. You're not allowed to add or remove persons on an application. You're not allowed to change the name of your organization. You're not allowed to change your business structure. You're not allowed to change your trademarks, service marks, or brands. You're not allowed to transfer, sale, or convey an interest in the license without permission. You can't modify the business before or after license that was not inspected, including changes in operations, processes, methods, additions or reductions in processing machinery or equipment, an increase or decrease in the size or capacity of the business, alterations to the means of ingress or egress. So no adding doors or taking doors away, okay, guys? Or changes that impact security, fire safety, or building safety. Also, you're not allowed to change the location without following a new application. And apparently a new application may include, but is not limited to, additional fees for that, additional inspections by the agency and the Bureau of Fire Services. So, you know, hey, okay. I still think it's really freaking crazy that you are not allowed to get a divorce without first asking permission from the CRA if you're a licensed operator in the state of Michigan. Seems a little crazy, personally. I mean, you know, did they do that on purpose? Was that always there? I feel like it wasn't always there. Was it? Was it? You can't marry someone? Wait, you can't marry someone or get divorced. Wow. Wow. Okay. This is on page 37. It is the second line on page 37. If you are a licensed operator, you cannot get married or divorced without first asking the CRA for permission. And why do we know this? Because you cannot have a change in owners, officers, members, directors, managerial employees, or their spouses without first submitting a reporting form and getting it approved by the agency. Yay. Gotta love it. How many people are violating that right now? They don't even fucking know. Probably a lot. Who knows? Who knows? All right, guys. So we're coming up on the ends. We made it through page 37. Thank you so much, Rick Von Stinkel and Brandy and Rex, for participating today. I'm so glad that you were here. I like having you guys here asking these questions. Thank you, Tom, for being present as well. I really love it. If you guys are here and you're listening and you haven't followed, please follow. I am a handful of follows away from getting a lot of additional tools to use on YouTube and Twitch to be able to interact with you guys. You need to have 50 followers in order to do that. I think as of today, I'm at like 48. So if you have the time, I would appreciate it. Next week, we will continue looking over these rules. Again, I'm writing out comments. You guys should be writing out comments. You should be reading these. You should be looking at what impacts you in your business. Okay? And you know what? You don't have to be a licensed operator. Okay? You could be a consumer. You could don't even need to be a consumer. You could just be a place that isn't a municipality that has a cannabis operator who wants to bring one to your town, right? So, you know, there's a lot that happens there. Tom, thank you very much for saying that was a great hour. I appreciate you for being here. Always good to see your name in places. Rip Von Stinkel, thank you so much. I'm glad to break this down and continue the conversations with people. Next week, we'll be talking about the social equity program that's starting on page 38. This is an entirely new section, guys, which is important because up until now, the agency had a social equity program that was not in statute or in rules. J. Bodie Cobalt, thank you very much. Also, please, guys, give me a follow. You don't have to subscribe or anything like that, but give me a follow. I just need a handful more followers. I'm so glad you guys are here. So this is a big deal. The social equity program will actually be part of the rules. It will actually have been approved by JCART when these rules go into effect, which it didn't have before, which, I mean, it's kind of a big deal because they were doing a bunch of stuff that had never been written down or approved before. Oh, those government agencies. They just kind of like to play fast and hard with the rules, don't they? Yes, they do. All right, I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a really good weekend.